No word of a lie, Star Wars games getting cancelled seems like a huge problem today, but realistically, it's always been a problem. Star Wars games have had countless amazing games that never saw the light of day over the years. Recently on the channel, we went completely in depth on the cancellation of the original Battlefront 3 in the 2000s. But in this video, we're going to be taking a look back at the history of cancelled Star Wars games. Specifically the ones that really hit hard that they were never made. This is a really interesting but also really frustrating journey, and looking back at it, it really makes you wonder just what could have been for Star Wars games. Now, I've wanted to make this video for a long time, but for some reason I just never got around to doing it, but we're here now. So in this video, we're going to be taking a look back at the long and frustrating history of cancelled Star Wars games, from games of old to the present day. But before we get into all of that, I just have a quick channel announcement for you all. I asked you guys on my last video if you guys wanted to see me expand my channel into a pure Star Wars film and TV channel, mainly due to the crazy announcements that have come out lately for Star Wars films and TV shows. And the response that you guys gave to that was overwhelmingly positive, so that process has begun. I'm currently working out a full channel rebrand for my second channel, which we're going to be covering Star Wars film and TV, news, trailer and episode reactions, theories, rankings, a bunch of stuff. So if that interests you, which if you're watching this video probably does, then be sure to go subscribe to that channel. A banner will pop out in the top right corner of this video right now, which will take you straight to it. But with that out of the way, that very shameless promotion out of the way, let's dive into the depressing history of cancelled Star Wars games. So like I mentioned, we're going to be focusing on mainly the bigger and more recognizable cancelled Star Wars games, as there have been countless smaller projects over the years that are just uninteresting and inconsequential, so we're trimming the fat and getting to the ones that really stung. So to kick things off, let's talk about Battle of the Sith Lords. We're starting with one that's really gonna hurt. Back in 2010, Redfly Studios got the green light to develop a Star Wars game, and they were throwing some ideas around, and then they eventually got to work on it. They then started working on a Darth Maul-centric game with a story all good to go. Only problem was, Lucasfilm was already working on the Clone Wars TV show, which of course would include Darth Maul himself, and because the story of the TV show and the game didn't line up, and of course the fact that Lucasfilm weren't going to share plot elements of the show with Redfly Studios, things got very, very complicated. Redfly Studios were only told that Darth Maul survived the events of The Phantom Menace and that he now had robot legs. So Redfly Studios went to work with what limited information they had, and shortly after they had put the work in, they were then told that Darth Maul had spider legs, not robot legs, which kinda screwed things up. Redfly then had a meeting with George Lucas himself, and it didn't go very well. George had crazy demands for the game, which included timeline contradictions and Darth Talon for some reason. And this obviously just made things worse, and I mean, you don't say no to George Lucas. So Redfly immediately went back to work on the game, and then a few weeks later they were notified that the game was terminated. A really up and down story to what would have been an awesome game to see. Like, imagine seeing a game completely revolved around Darth Maul. Like, how amazing would that have been? The gameplay that has surfaced over the years looks pretty decent from what we've seen, and it's just a real tragedy that we never got to see this game come to light. And the next cancelled Star Wars game we have for this video is Star Wars 1313. This is probably the most infamous Star Wars game cancellation that there is, period. This game had a soft reveal in 2012, followed by an actual announcement at E3 in 2013, and it looked impressive. A third-person action-adventure Star Wars game based in the underworld of Coruscant that takes elements of Uncharted and Gears of War's cover system, taking place between the prequels and the originals. This game would have been something special. Now, developers worked on this game knowing fully well that George Lucas could basically drop a bombshell that could radically change development at any time. And I mean, you don't say no to George Lucas. You don't say no to the maker. He the man. Well, despite the game's main character being set in stone and the voice actor already been paid for his work, George Lucas said that he wanted the main character to be Boba Fett now. So that kinda ruined everything. Combine that with the mess of conflicting ideas, employee turnovers, and people in higher positions coming and going, this game ended up a total and utter mess of ideas and bloated finances. But the final nail in the coffin for 1313 was when George Lucas signed over Star Wars to Disney, which resulted in LucasArts eventually being shut down and 1313 along with it. It really was a tragic end to what could have been an incredible Star Wars game. But next up, we have a very recent cancellation, a Battlefront spin-off codenamed Project Viking. This game, you would have guessed it, would have been a Battlefront spin-off. EA Vancouver started brewing up some ideas for this game back in 2018, and it was rumored to have open world elements involved, and the plan was for this game to be released alongside next-gen consoles. So that would have been right now. We legitimately would have gotten this game now, and God knows we really need it because things are pretty boring at the moment. But anyway, EA teamed up its Vancouver studio with Criterion, a UK-based developer studio, but due to having different sections of the game's development across different companies in different countries, there were just too many people trying to do too many things. The game was rumored to have a strong focus on story and characters, but rather than extend its timeline, EA's executives decided to cancel the game instead once it was realized that it wasn't going to release on time. This one really stings given just how things are going for Star Wars games at the moment, with just not really anything happening at all unless you're into Star Wars Squadrons. That's pretty much the ultimatum. It's either Squadrons or nothing at the moment. So the absence of Project Viking hits a little bit harder than most. And next up, we have Star Wars Battlefront III. I dedicated nearly an entire video to this just over a week ago, so I'll try and recap this one a little bit quicker. So due to the success of previous Battlefront installments in 2004 and 2005, Free Radical were given the almighty task on going above and beyond in a Battlefront 3 which would be made for next-gen consoles. The game was extremely ambitious and was going to attempt things never seen, not just in Star Wars games, but games as a whole. The story goes a former LucasArts employee went and revealed what happened to this game to video game website Kotaku. He said Free Radical had been working on an ambitious Battlefront 3, and the game had ballooned over budget, and according to a source from Free Radical, the game was 99% complete. Which some people do call BS on, but I'll leave it up to you. But in 2008, the game was secretly cancelled, and depending on who you ask, LucasArts decided they didn't want to fund the game anymore because it was ballooning over budget, and others say that Free Radical couldn't hit their deadlines and fulfill their ambitious plans for the game. Both sides are likely, but what is certain is that this game's cancellation was a downright shame. But moving on to the next cancelled Star Wars game, we have Star Wars Imperial Commando. Now, this was going to be a sequel to the beloved Republic Commando game from 2005. This game never came to be due to a lack of direction, several production issues, a very unstable company at the time, and poor sales projections. Now, unlike other games we've discussed, there aren't actually that many details regarding the cancellation of this game, mainly due to the fact that it was cancelled so early in development. But due to the fact that it was a sequel to a hugely popular game and fans to this day still seek closure due to Republic Commando's cliffhanger ending, I thought I'd throw this one in here. It's a vague history, this one, but it still stings. And next up, we have Knights of the Old Republic 3. The first two KOTOR games were beloved by many. The second was not as good as the first, but it was pretty stiff competition, seeing as the first KOTOR is widely regarded to be the best Star Wars game ever made. So the third Knights of the Old Republic game had a reputation to uphold, but whatever happened to it? Well, LucasArts decided to cancel Knights of the Old Republic 3 in favor of other Star Wars games. Not to mention, LucasArts just were not willing to invest the money into the game, because at the time, it would have been a very, very expensive game to make. It's been said that the developers had written a story, designed worlds, characters, and a few other bells and whistles. There has been concept art posted across the internet over time since its cancellation, which shows us some characters, locations, and vehicles that we might have seen in the game. It really does suck that we never got to see KOTOR 3. There have been rumors floating around that EA might reboot this franchise, but you know what? I wouldn't count on it. I think at least for the time being, the KOTOR franchise is going to remain on ice. But moving on, and the next one we have really hurts, and that is Project Ragtag, a recent cancellation by EA. This game was quoted as being the best Star Wars game ever made according to the game's producer Zach Mumbach, however you pronounce it, I'm not quite sure. This game was helmed by popular and respected game director and writer Amy Hennig, and it was ambitious as hell. It was going to have a massive open world which would follow a rogue group pulling off galactic heists. It seems friggin' amazing. This game was set up for greatness, but EA wanted the game to be shipped out soon, so they wanted a bunch of things cut from the game so that could happen. Project Ragtag's producer came out recently and said, "I think we would have made the best Star Wars game ever made. The story, the setup, and the characters were set up for success, but what we had to execute was going to take a while. I think the company saw that." This game never saw the light of day somehow. EA at the time were just not interested in single player games, but came out with Jedi Fallen Order a few years later, which really did change their minds. Now, EA eventually shut down Visceral Games, who were working on Ragtag. EA Vancouver picked up the pieces and it was renamed Project Orca, but that got cancelled as well. This one really is painful, a game brimming with potential, and what makes it worse is when Viking was cancelled, it was due to games like PUBG being all the craze at the time, and apparently that's the direction EA wanted to go with the franchise, with a games as a service model, and that nobody wanted single player games anymore apparently. It was really a frustrating story, this one, but given the fact that Fallen Order was a huge wake up call for EA due to it being stupidly successful, maybe there is hope for more games like this somewhere down the line. And the final game we're going to touch on in this video is The Force Unleashed 3. Now, The Force Unleashed 2 was cited as rushed and a cash grab, and a bit disappointing overall. What ensued was a whole lot of sacking before and after The Force Unleashed 2's development process. This included CEO resignations, and by the time The Force Unleashed 2 was out, 1/3 of LucasArts employees had been sacked. All of this were just contributing factors as to why we never got to see The Force Unleashed 3. The Force Unleashed 2 ended up on a cliffhanger, and it was assumed that the third installment would provide answers. Sam Witwer, who played Starkiller, even posted on his Facebook this message. He said, "Hayden Blackman, David Collins and I have discussed the story, and it's pretty great. I don't think it's too much of a spoiler to say that taking Vader captive was not the best idea." Hayden Blackman, who resigned as CEO, went and said that the story would have included Starkiller and Vader reluctantly teaming up to face a new threat from Palpatine that was going to replace Vader. It wouldn't have been as linear as the previous two installments with a playground type element to the game, and if Blackman never left LucasArts, then we might have actually seen The Force Unleashed 3. So we are left to wonder what could have been. Now, just like the Knights of the Old Republic 3, it is rumored that EA are going to reboot the Force Unleashed franchise, with rumors getting really hotly debated, especially recently. But everything at the moment is pointing toward it not happening, but it's not impossible. Sam Witwer remains not just an actor still popping up in Star Wars today, but a huge Star Wars fan who is very active in the community, so EA rebooting the Force Unleashed franchise will always be a looming possibility. And with EA's tonal shift toward more single player games at the moment due to Fallen Order success, this is actually looking likely as ever. But guys, that is a brief history on cancelled Star Wars games. I made a point of just going over the ones that really were talking points, as there has been a million cancelled Star Wars games, and I wanted to cut the fat in this video and get to the good stuff. But guys, if you did enjoy this video, then be sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. And remember, I am in the process of revamping my second channel. I'm going to be going all in on that channel for Star Wars film and TV content. This channel will remain the same, don't worry. But yeah, it would be greatly appreciated if you could head over there, subscribe, and stay tuned. But that's going to do it for me today. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.